First of all, let me just say I saw the film, loved it. I actually had a
great.
blast. I think it's a great start to the superhero season, so to speak. Just curious, Kenneth Branagh was a very interesting choice for this film, and I was just wondering if that had an influence on you choosing the role, with having somebody of that caliber taking on the role.
It's very much icing on the cake, I think. You know, the script was so good and the characters were so well-rounded, and then to have him directing, and then, you know, Anthony Hopkins, Natalie Portman, this guy, you know, Chris. I mean, it was just, it was definitely the completion of the puzzle.
Yeah. I mean, when I first saw the film, my immediate thought was it's got those grand scale events that Branagh is famous for, with the whole betrayal on the royal courts and everything
Absolutely.
else.
I think he would say he's somebody who's always been interested in power, or in what happens behind the closed doors in the households of people who run things.
Yep.
You know, Hamlet is a play about the palace of Denmark and the royal family shattering in pain, and this is really about the royal family in Asgard shattering in pain. So there's something he's definitely interested in about this kind of dynastic drama, which is very, very pure storytelling, I think. So,
Yeah, no, he's a great choice for it. Were either of you fans of the comic or comics in general before doing this?
Well, thank you. I was. Yeah, I grew up on comic books, mainly X-Men and Spider-Man,
Me
because
too.
I know. Yeah. Then you know. Actually, one of my favorite characters was Jubilee.
Oh,
which
yes.
I didn't see her in the films. I was like, dang. But yeah, I had read Thor, but I hadn't read as many, you know, Thor comics as I had, you know, X-Men and that sort of thing. But I have 4 brothers, so that's where that came from. But when I heard about this movie being made, I thought, oh, they're finally going to make it? Because I always thought, I was like, there's so much material out there, comic book-wise. There's so many opportunities, and it was just really, really awesome that they were going to do this. And then I was like, I wonder if I could be in it somehow. And then I was. So it was kind of awesome. I think
That's
I kind of
fantastic.
willed that my entire childhood up until now.
So you were not into comics as a child?
I was actually, but I had this deck of I had a deck of what's called, I don't know if you had top trumps. Do you know what
yes,
they
yes.
are? Like, you can have them for racing cars and fighter planes and stuff. And I had Marvel superheroes, so I had this deck of all of the characters, superheroes and supervillains, and they were all listed according to their height and weight and agility and intelligence and superpowers. So that was my way in, really, to Thor and Loki.
Fantastic. And so when you researched for the roles, did you actually go back to the comics, or were you reliant on the script and Kenneth Branagh to get you through?
Well, I read the script, and I said, okay, I know with my previous knowledge that this is a little bit different, but the movie definitely pays tribute to the different storylines that happen in the comic books. So the movie has its own identity. So what we were careful about was not just basing our performances or our take on our characters just with the comic books only. It was important for us to bring ourselves to the character and have our own identity. So I did. I reread a lot of comic books, and then just sort of had a nerd fest with Kevin Feige and Craig Kyle about, you know, who is this woman and what are her capabilities and what would you like to see, and we geeked out for about 2 hours, and then after that I was like, all right, I'm ready, let's go.
And for you?
Oh, I just thought I had to sort of pay due deference to the 40 years worth of history, and I was lucky enough that Ken Branagh invited me to sort of come to the table at that very early stage with the script, and he said, you know, have a look at the comics and tell me and tell the writer, Don Payne, a brilliant writer, what do you think is well, he was asking me, what do you think is interesting about Loki? What are his most dramatic aspects and characteristics? What do you want to pull out of the comics that what can we find in there that's good for a 2-hour film?
Right.
So I went back to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and then all the way through to J. Michael Straczynski and Robert Roddy and stuff. A terrific Loki comic on its own, which is amazing in its extension of compassion towards Loki's predicament.
Loki's such an interesting and detailed character.
Oh,
in
he's
the
a
comics.
great character. I know, I was so jealous. I was like, dang, you got a lot of meat in this. It's so good.
Well,
you do
know,
it so well, though. That's the
time
thing.
Time will come when Loki comes
Takes
back
over Sif's
in
body.
the body of Sif, and so it'll be up to you. And you know, maybe
Well, that actually brings up another question. In the comic books, Sif actually has a romantic relationship with Thor.
Right.
Was that ever explored in the early days of setting up this film or for the future?
You know, No, we like I said, we pay tribute to that in the film very subtly, but it's not. It's definitely not the focal point.
There was a look and a glance here and there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you. Simply put. But yeah. I think I was reading some of the comic books, and I forgot that Loki takes over Sif's body, and it was really awkward because it's like, Tom, read this. But that's one way you could go, I guess.
Let's go
which
there.
would be fun.
Yeah.
There's so many different
There are
ways.
different variations and ways and things,
Yeah.
But I suppose, and also with respect, I suppose the first romantic attachment that you see in the comics is with Jane Foster. You know, when we discover Thor at the very beginning of his incarnation as a superhero, he's with her. So that in a way, I think Ken, even though he knew about the Thor-Sif relationship, he thought he had to pay respect to that aspect of it.
And it modernizes it as well, which is important.
But it fits very much within J. Michael Straczynski's world.
Right,
as well.
yes, it does.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting as well. I was looking through your histories and your filmographies and noticing that you have very extensive careers in theater and television and so on. What was it like moving into something this big?
Oh,
Because this is a giant film.
I hadn't done anything of this caliber before. Physically, I've had a lot of, for some reason, I seem to get roles that are quite physical. I don't know, I must walk around with like an invisible cape. Yeah, I know, right? But as for the theater background, I don't know, you should take that one. I mean, this guy is incredible with that.
Well, I don't know about that. I just,
He's pretty incredible. I watched Together in Storm last night.
Oh,
wonderful
thanks,
performance.
man.
Very
Wow,
small, but very
yeah.
wonderful performance.
Thank you very much. That's really kind. I guess in many ways I was given the job because of my theatre background. There's something so theatrical about Asgard and the story up in that shining city that kind of maybe is part of a skill set that I have. And, but you know, it is different. The thing about theatre is it's just a different scale. You know, you're doing it live. You're doing the whole thing every night, 8 shows a week for 3 months, and you know, maybe to 400 people or 800 people a night. And this is something you do over 6 months, and then however many millions one hopes will see the film. So there is an extra sense of scale, I guess. But acting's acting. Doesn't matter whether you're doing it on stage or on TV or on film. It's you know, what we're trying to do is be as truthful and as honest as we possibly can in terms of the playing of our characters. So it sort of doesn't matter really. It doesn't matter how many crazy sets or frost giants you're fighting. You're trying to find the truth of the moment.
Well, and in some ways, big special effects films are a little bit like theatre as well. There's a lot of space, substance, and imagination.
Yeah, you're having to fuel your imagination with more ammunition in a way, because you haven't got the external stimulus of the real thing. You know, there are no location scouts that can go and find Asgard for us. So yeah, it's playing really. It's like when you're a kid and you're playing in the back garden. You're imagining you're in the Wild West, and you're not. Of course, you're in the back garden, but that's all we're doing. We're just messing around, playing. Big kids playing.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So, are you both signed for a sequel, we hope?
That's the
we
hope.
hope, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
fingers crossed.
We'd hope that people will be interested enough to see what we do a second time around and where we take it. I mean, what's so great about Thor in the stories is that the universe is so big and you could go anywhere. You know, there are so many other adventures for Thor and Sif and the Warriors 3 to go on. God knows what happens to Loki, but he's always lurking in the shadows.
He's always lurking.
Yeah.
Well, I, for one, will be lining up for a sequel.
Oh, that's so kind.
Jaimie, Tom, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Dave.
you.